to 5 officers, directors, and employees.
So this is the one we did some work at the last meeting.
Yeah, so if you just sort of click the pages really fast, you're gonna see the yellow sections, not a lot of them. But yeah, we did a lot of work on this. Again, this is the third time we've worked on it.
We did last meeting.
Yeah, the biggest change was making uniform the removal process. And so that's cut and paste several places. So page 2 at the top, first highlight. That's that we probably spent a half an hour on this language at the last meeting. So as we read it all in context, city manager serves at the pleasure of the governing body and may be suspended or removed without cause at any time as follows: by the mayor or by another member of the governing body by a majority vote of the total number of members of the governing body, with the mayor voting only in the instance of a tie. Gets rid of all that confusion we had before. Works by the council and then the governing body and blah, blah, blah. So now it's clear. And this was a full commission rewrite on this one. So we got that language right on that.
And the reason I think we spent so much time on it, our discussion was, Benito's say, and Joe saying, if there's a mayor that can't get along with a manager, it's, we're going to be at an impasse. There's a lot of things that are just going to fall through the cracks. And this gives the mayor still the opportunity to support it, maybe get enough support with the council members or any he needs or she needs. And then if there's a tie, be able to break the tie at that point.
Right.
Because if the council's sort of forcing them to stick around, that's not going to be a comfortable environment.
Under the old language, the
Actually,
mayor could bring. Yeah, exactly. Now you've got a mayor that doesn't want a manager and a manager that knows they're not wanted by the mayor. Yeah.
But the council's making them stick together. So
Right.
that's a tie.
Yeah.
So that's what the
Under the
majority,
original language, if the mayor brought it forward, only the council could vote it and it could be a 2-2 tie.
and nothing happens.
And then nothing happens. It fails because there wasn't a majority.
And it was 2 candidates that, were proposing.
But
Yes,
that's higher.
and we pulled that.
Yeah.
We pulled that in prior versions.
Okay, yeah.
We pulled that into prior versions. The next edit is in 504A. And we struck out the language again to make it consistent. We're not forcing a contract on anyone. And so we had pulled that out in city manager. It's out in clerk. The only place that had remained is city attorney, and someone caught that. So at the last meeting, so I deleted that. They can enter into a contract if they want to. We're just not mandating it through the charter. And so we made that consistent amongst all the appointed positions. Then, and for some reason it was repeated twice. So down in D, it said the governing body shall enter into a contract with the city attorney, which shall establish. Well, I don't know why I got it twice, so we deleted D in its entirety there.
So now D, that would benefit the city, right? Like having no payouts,
Well,
if there's no contract.
yeah, well,
Right?
so there's not a mandate for a contract. So a mayor can hire a city attorney with or without a contract. And now it's got benefits and minuses. As a city attorney that had a 4-year contract, the pluses are you can recruit more people because there's more stability, right? I'm not at will. I'm going to be here 4 years. I'm willing to leave my other job and come on. The downside is, and most of these contracts have a for cause. You can terminate for cause. The downside is if there's going to be a dispute, you might end up paying out part of a contract.
Right.
And so what it does is it allows the mayor and the governing body with each candidate in each moment decide, do we want to offer a contract or do we just want to hire? And without the contract, they're at will. Okay, so it gives them more options versus mandating the contract that you don't know.
So are all the contracts with attorneys generally with clause?
If there is a contract, a good contract protecting the city would have a cost provision in. So, you know, you're not at will. You can only be terminated for cause. So otherwise you just have a 4-year contract and they could be screwing up all, you know, in year 1, and you're gonna have to pay them out 3 more years to get rid of them.
So they'll prove that whatever the cause is, they could go in as early as the first year.
They could go as early as the first week. Person shows up drunk and punches someone at work. Okay, we've got cause and removal. Yes. Okay.
You know, especially now that all that stuff happened down at Western, that golden parachute stuff is crazy. You know, and then, you know, I'm talking the contract's different than that, but and it may even be a contract that got that messed up in the first place. But it's tough, especially when it's taxpayer dollars. You know, I mean, that's what we have to be careful.
It's like a pendulum. Sometimes everybody gets a contract and then one of them goes bad and then nobody gets a contract for a while. And then they realize they can't recruit and retain, so then they have contracts.
So there's 3 possibilities of an employee with or without a contract, or someone like you who's contract but not an employee.
Correct. And it can be both ends. It can, so when I've been in-house counsel, Santa Fe Public Schools, Economic Development, even the governor's office, I was in-house counsel, but there's only one of me, and I don't have expertise in every area of law, so we still hired on contract
Right.
attorneys. Yeah.
But as far as types,
Yeah, those are the 2 buckets, basically.
But the city currently does not have you as the lead attorney, right?
No, there are several, I can't tell you, there are at least 2 law firms on contract to provide general legal services to the city. Yeah, at least 2. And I know there are some specialized law firms like to handle the fires
The water.
and the water and some other stuff. Yeah.
I think that would be best that they have one. At least they're bouncing information to an individual.
That's always my argument for an in-house counsel. They become the senior advisor. Just like your public works director manages all the road contracts, the city attorney would manage all the legal contracts.
And even though you may not be in the area of expertise, he's communicating with people with the same language.
Mhm.
That is somebody to keep point.
Right.
What was going on.
Communicate,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
when the city
legal
manager,
to public, issue back to.
Yeah.
Liaison.
when the city manager has his cabinet meetings, right, with all the department directors, the department director meeting, then you've got someone sitting at the table. Yeah, we need to accomplish these 5 things, go get it done. Well, then might go call the law firm that's going to get it done. But then they communicate it out, I communicate it back in, and it gets done.
I guess we were pretty spoiled back in the day I was here. Because we had an in-house and kept track of everything. It didn't matter what issue we had going on, like I was one of the appointed, I mean, you know, full-time attorney.
Yeah.
And find out, just get an update of what was going on.
The hardest thing for municipalities now is budget and scale.
Yeah.
So how much can you pay? And who can you recruit as a result, especially in your smaller communities with few employees?
Well, this little town has a lot going on. You know, a lot of, you know, considering the size, you know, with the fires and then with the FEMA stuff, oh my God, just in the water specialty and
There are several entities, but let's say the city and Highlands and maybe the county are probably of the size to consider in-house.
and then the fact that the city has enterprise funds, that even makes it more dynamic. Yeah.
So just on this public forum, should that be letter D? Or should that be C, that last?
The last one should be C. I don't know why I didn't think about it.
Okay, I just making sure.
Yeah, that should be C. And not D. And thanks for pointing that out, so I can make that up for the next version. Okay, and the next version should mostly just be black and red.
Mhm.
We need to show all our edits. Okay. So, and then that last paragraph, if I didn't say it already, it takes our uniform language now and puts it in each of these important positions. So, city attorney, maybe, whether contractual serves at the pleasure of the governing body, may be suspended or removed without cause at any time by the mayor or by any other member of the governing body by the majority vote of the total number of members of the governing body, with the mayor voting only in the instance of the time. Very clear.
Mhm.
Okay. That carries us down into city clerk. The only edit for city clerk is the exact same language I just read to you.
And that's on D, right?
And that's on D. All the other red we've seen before. That's why I'm highlighting. And chief of police, I have in my notes a couple of comments. Certified law enforcement officer.
On the clerk, do we have where the track state law?
On which part?
You know, how they started off with that on the manager, I think it was. So we talked about the section of the law.
No, we use those on the electeds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We use them on the electeds.
Where's the? Go ahead.
Okay, so that completes clerk, chief of police. There wasn't a reference, so we have certification or certifications needed, which is the clerk needs certification, the city attorney needs license, and the city manager needs to be working for certification. We didn't have anything in chief of police that came up in the last meeting. Even though I went through a couple drafts of this, the simplest was the easiest. It was a certified law enforcement officer. Period. I thought about saying certified by New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy, but you might be recruiting someone from out of state that's going to be coming in and getting their certification here. So I just put in who is a certified law enforcement. Yeah. Right, we don't want someone to be chief of police and they're not certified. Right? So,
And it wasn't in there at all.
it wasn't there anywhere. So that one was interesting. That takes us down to C, and that's just that same language on the removal process. Copied and pasted right there. Okay, the last edit. Oh yeah, this was a funny edit. And someone cut this last time. You guys will be reading very detailed. E under departments. City manager may serve as department director, provided that the manager shall not serve as clerk, attorney, or police chief, or finance director. And that's really because, one, you can't be attorney and client at the same time. And you're not going to be the police chief and the police chief's manager at the same time.
And we know what happens when you have a manager or a president of the institution. It's also the finance director.
Right.
Hint. A long time ago, that was an issue.
Yeah, well, and it's an audit issue, right? That the one directing the checks can't be the one monitoring the checks. So these are all-
What were they thinking? There was a lot of it that thought that way. They needed to.
So you're seeing the pattern. You've done a ton of work on this for 3 weeks. These are just the remnant edits. And you're there.
That takes care of, five, right?
Yeah, that takes care of 5.
I like this meeting.
Yeah.
It's Joseph, that was kicking butt the last time. He said, no messing around. He said, Benito's not here, I'll take care of it.
Joe's, we gotta go all the way to public work, all the way back to chambers.
That's right. We gotta get them out of the public eye in case we gotta rough them up. That takes us to 6, boards, commissions, and advisory committees. We added under 601, the best place to put it was A. We had talked about it in a different section, but A talks about the creation of boards and commissions. So we added the concept, because it doesn't exist in here, that the governing body may also, by ordinance, very important language, right? By ordinance, establish committees composed solely of the members of the governing body. And I must have been hearing Meredith in my head because I tracked the language, the structure of the language from the sentence above, where it says the governing body may, by ordinance, establish such boards and commissions.
That just proves that you can't pull the wool over her.
You can't.
No.
You can't. So, we put it here in creation.
Right.
And, you know, if we could, we put a parenthetical that says, and encourages them to do so. They really should have a finance committee.
So what it means to me is that currently, under the current charter, city councilors can't be on committees.
So here,
No, but
there's the reference on the ex officio, which we talked about, but didn't do a lot about.
yeah, but that's the highlight that I see.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you set the example of what happens in Santa Fe, where they have, committees that only, the councilors are in.
Right.
Not open to the whole world, the type committees that they have to sort of control. stuff.
And finance, your finance committee is the best example.
That's what I would think right off the bat.
So that's the edit on the first page. Any questions on that?
But if anybody challenges it right today, not including the work we're doing, you can't be on the committee if you're a member of the council.
Well, let's go down to, you've got ex officio members, okay? And where, oh, yeah, I'm not on page 2. You have got, let's see. So this is where things were getting messed up. Was, ex officio members F. Now, these are old edits. I didn't make new edits this week. But the governing body may only provide for such effects ex officio members by ordinance. So they've got to agree to put them on a citizens committee as ex officio members, but they've got to do it by ordinance. None of this informal stuff where a board member says, hey, I want to sit on this. And then they go control it because they're a councilor or a mayor.
And they've got to go through a process to put by ordinance to even establish a new committee.
Yes, yes. And so if you notice here, may only provide, before it said, as it deems appropriate, which is vague. It was vague and I think it made them feel like, oh, I feel it's appropriate to add myself, but they were forgetting the ordinance part.
What do we mean by appointed official? The first line of F.
Appointed official are your articulated ones, your city manager, your city clerk, your city attorney, and your chief of police.
Okay.
Everybody decides that.
Okay.
Right, because fire hasn't been added. Only one counselor asked for fire.
And it's not in there.
It's not there, and I think Cassandra's homework is to pull.
Nobody has them at all.
Nobody has them appointed.
No.
But as a non-official as a non-voting ex officio member,
Yes.
a city council person can still have a huge total influence on a commission.
Yeah,
That's why we're focusing on the ordinance.
that's why we're pulling it from here and focusing on the ordinance.
Yeah. So that if the council deems it appropriate for them to sit over there, then they're going to be the ones they run through the ordinance process. And if they see someone having too much influence, you know, and learn from their mistakes, then they're going to have to amend that ordinance. But they've got it, they've just been doing it
No,
informal.
there's a bunch of hoops now to jump in before they can just.
Bunch of process.
Now,
The-
yeah.
The set process, yes.
You can't-
Well, in my mind, they're setting a standard saying, if you are an elected official, you either are going to be in a specialized committee
Mhm.
or you're not going to be involved at all.
Right, yes.
And I think that's best for the community.
It's the most clear.
That way there won't be no undue influence like you're talking about. Right? Because even if an ex-official member of the city council, gets into one of these committees, he doesn't have to say much, but if he just says, well, I don't think that's gonna fly, well, everybody's
Right.
decision just changed right there on the spot. So there is undue influence.
Which is,
What
Why
what
they're
we're,
changing.
yeah, that's what we're changing. Is that correct? You know, that's what we're applying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to make a decision, in or out.
there's some hoops to jump through before they even get it.
Yeah,
And then ordinance is very sophisticated. You've got to take the ordinance through
Approved.
the approval process, you've got to publish it for public comment, you've got to wait so many days to vote. So that's your highest process for
And public
examining
hearing
whether or not it's
and all
appropriate.
that, yeah.
Public hearing with public input, published in the newspaper, all of those things. So we've made sure we pushed it into a highly scrutinized context. And if and the body needs to really, really want it, it's a consumer perspective. Okay.
And you just have strong board chairs.
I don't know, that's scary. I've been there.
So the next edit in G is the removal process and just that simple cut and paste of what we've been using in every other section. Okay, it's going to take us to the last page of this, which only had a small edit. It was missing the word "or." It said ordinance resolution. Ordinance, comma, resolution or motion. We deleted motion because you can't track the motions. Got to be a resolution. It's got to be an ordinance that is separately maintained and reported to the clerk's office. With these motions that create a brand new advisory committee, nobody knows when it was created. That was 5 years ago. We don't know when it was. We don't know. We didn't set out who the membership was. We didn't set out what their powers and duties are. No, you've got to do that by ordinance or resolution on these advisory committees. So again, if you see from the red work from prior meetings, you guys have done a lot to update this also. Okay. That's 6. 7. Boy, this is ticky tacky. We didn't have any substantive changes. Not ticky tacky. This is appropriate editing, but it's a small issue. We have one edit that we caught in the last reread, Meredith, and we were missing the word "of" for the use interested persons. So it's correct. It's correct in the usually. So that's all we have so far on financial procedures. Which then takes us, to 8. I did not reprint it. I just have to reassure you guys that I'm going to change every reference in 8 to the local municipal code. I just
Right,
I ran out of time.
we're not going to, yeah.
That's elections, initiative, referendum, and recall.
Exactly.
So instead of making up our own language, refer to the municipal.
That's exactly.
So it's simple, right? It's clean.
Well, and then if it changes.
There's no discrepancy.
The charter out of compliance with.
Yes, this remove that
State
issue.
law.
Which was the problem we've had with this old language.
And that's pretty much what the mayor started off, is,
He was tired of being so contradictory.
yeah, it's back and forth. It's governing body, majority of the council, it's always.
Skip through 8, right?
Yeah, so 8, just so you know, 801 city elections is gonna say city elections are gonna be conducted in accordance with. Yeah, initiative, gonna be conducted in accordance with. Yeah, it's actually gonna shorten the charter by about 5 pages. Referendum conducted in accordance with. And then, recall conducted in accordance with.
It makes it more practical document and it just reduces the size of it alone.
Yeah,
And then for future charters, right? Well, then you don't have to worry about this section.
Yeah,
Those sections will say it's just forever.
It's just how it says the time.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah.
starts,
Anything else that are involved in the.
What, for that section, specifically, it'll send a message.
I think we did that one the first time we did the revision, we were one of the first small communities to adopt that.
Right.
And people would say, why would you want an initiative referendum and recall? Well, that's all sort of in line with what they call the, the city of Las Vegas is named like term. There's no blank, or it's an open, it's got stricter rules than the regular communities can have.
Well, it's part of your charter, but home rule.
Home rule, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So after we put all that together, when we did home rule, because it all tied together.
Right.
You become a home rule community, you can have stricter ordinances than state law and federal law, or, however that goes. But you still have an opportunity to sort of direct your own direction.
Right.
And not have to wait always for the state to make up our mind for us. We can have a stricter policy if we need it. And it makes it easier for incentives for economic development.
Right.
That's what home rule allows us to do, from what I can remember. Is that?
And what's changed between the last version of this charter and the new one is that local municipal elections act. And the first thing, the major change that it made was the ability of municipalities to conduct elections. So if you remember, we cleaned out in mayor a special election to fill the mayoral spot. The reason we cleaned that up is because it said you can only have elections in two circumstances. One is in November of odd numbered years. And the second is a mail-in ballot only to deal with certain topics. And filling vacancies aren't on those topics. And nor are referendum initiatives, all the other things in the election cycle. We don't have that ability anymore. So instead, we do that through the election committee and the second election.
So if somebody brought something up for initiative or referendum, that could be a special election?
I had a feeling you were gonna ask me what was in that.
Because I'm thinking to myself, if the council didn't make it up and take action, or if the council did something the community didn't like, the community can take action.
Mhm.
I'll bet you it's gotta be an election, allowable election thing, because you can't wait 2 years for a issue. It could actually be 23 months.
Let me show you. We're at 128. So this is a major change.
I'm just talking off the top of my head.
C7 kind of addresses.
So it's under Articles 8. It's initiative or referendum, one of them, even recall.
Article 8C7 says if the governing body fails to act.
Here we go. Special local elections. Ballot questions, qualifications of candidates. Okay, regular local elections shall be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday. Okay, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of each odd numbered year. Okay, so that's regular. It shall be held to elect qualified persons to membership on a local governing body and where applicable to elect municipal executive office and to municipal judicial. Should be nonpartisan. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Local government may propose a ballot question to be considered by the voters of the local government. At a regular local election or a general as provided by at a special local election, call conducted and canvassed is provided for in the Special Election Act. Okay, so it tells me all these other, not all of them, but they have the opportunity, which ones? Referendum, initiative,
And recall.
and recall, all to be a special election.
And it doesn't have to be a mail-in?
Yeah, when you go over to the Special Election Act, yeah,
It only can be a mailing? Really?
That was one of the big changes.
Why?
Because the legislature so declared.
You don't know the reason?
I don't.
It's not
Well,
as messy, but it's almost
Yeah.
not, nobody, well, I'm sure there's something local, you can make it noise.
But you're gonna have fewer votes if it's mayor.
It is.
No, actually, I think it was intentionally designed to have more votes.
Really?
Yeah. With your municipal elections get about 20% of the vote, but your school elections get about 6% of the vote in the old way. When they were on their own, so they combined them all into one election to try and increase that number. And then the special election, since only 6% show up in person, they figured the special election requires you to mail a ballot to every registered
Oh, the
voter.
ballot is
in the
mailed
area.
to the people.
It's mailed to them. And every single one of them. And that's a risk for schools and for cities on bond elections. Because usually not usually, but a lot of people that oppose bonds just stay home, they don't vote. They're not interested in the school district and sometimes municipal elections. But now they get them in their home, like, oh, I don't like this, and I'm mailing it in. So you have bigger risk. But it's intended to get more participation because you get.
Well, West just had this.
Which also makes it
Mention
expensive.
the cost.
Well,
It
expensive,
makes it
but-
very expensive. For school districts, it runs $80,000 to $100,000 to run a special election.
But if our election and city elections are at the same time, then it's a shared expense.
It is, that's why they put it all in November. And don't quote me on this. I don't know that the November election is funded by any of the entities other than the county. Counties might be getting more appropriations to run the elections, but I don't think the city, the school board, the water authority, and all the others that qualify for that November election, I don't think they paid anything.
So it's a mail-in for referendum,
Or-
initiative referendum and recall.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
At least there's a challenge.
Yeah.
And that has to be like, you have to go to the Secretary of State's office, double check what, that it's not close enough to a current election, so many days after, there's a whole bunch of stuff like
You
that.
have to have a sticky note with you. You don't? Okay, no worries. I'll just make, and I don't like making notes on my,
Just do a
There's some
dog,
paper.
just do a dog ear.
No, yeah, actually, I'm going to, thank you. I'm just gonna write down the exact section, so we're looking for the.
I thought that there'd have to be a way for the community to get back involved and not wait till November of the odd number of years. If you have a knucklehead, an elected position, you want to recall them, you can't wait,
Makes sense.
up to 23 months, because that's what it's,
Well,
that's a long time.
Remember when mayor was a 2-year position and you could not recall because,
It was the first year or the second year. So a councilor couldn't be recalled the first year or the last year. They could be recalled in the second and third year. That's all it was for a while. Remember that one? You couldn't recall someone that had, if it was a 4-year term, you could recall them in the first year or the last year.
Oh, wow, okay.
And
mayor was 2 years.
yeah, so you couldn't recall them at all.
Recall mayor and-
That's why I ran for mayor. I don't even remember that. We didn't have recall on our deal, so we would have gone back to state law. We didn't have recall back then. All of these came in together. So then we have nothing going on that article at
I have one tiny, copy of it.
but they're not gonna have all those things.
What?
On 8, you heard talking about 8, right?
8.
All this is gonna disappear.
It's gonna all be gone for the most
It's
part.
gonna be this part. There's
It's
about
gonna
here,
rip, it's gonna rip you out of Rickford statute.
state statute, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
On 8, it's just gonna be the
yeah,
top
it's gonna
four
be the references.
and none of the details.
None of the detail. Unless I find that some of it's necessary, but I don't anticipate that.
We're not having any of the wording of these 4 items.
Those 4 items are gonna just say refer to state law.
It's
Yeah.
Reference to.
And it's gonna refer to the sections.
Okay.
I love that stuff.
That's a good one. I think, you know, talk to the legislature about that. He knew it was gonna be here.
It's most efficient. And then we don't have to put it contrary to law.
Oh, that's what you mean by struggling with child.
It's, you know, it's the cleanup. All,
Yeah, 5 pages.
So we're moving to 9.
Yes, ma'am. What conflict of interest?
Then I read through that, I skimmed through it. The only edit I would propose in there is a reference to the New Mexico Governmental Conduct Act. So what's in here is on conflict of interest ethics, subjective to the city. It's been in place. I don't recommend gutting it. I read through it. I didn't have any problems with any of it.
So we can add your reference.
And add a reference to the New Mexico Governmental Conduct Act that says compliance with this does not, I mean, the concept, I'll come up with better language, but, compliance with this, article does not absolve anyone from complying with the New Mexico Governmental Conduct Act. Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to remember, when they put this thing together, it was very specific for a term of 1 year. It wasn't there before.
Right.
And it showed up like this. And when I look at this, I think at one point, someplace it talked about a dollar figure, I can't remember, $500 or something.
You referring to all of Article
Yeah.
9 in general?
Well, the conflict of interest, 9.01, before it's A, there's a number, at the reference of a $500 figure, and
Number 5.
in other parts of it, but see, this, to me, this was sort of just put together, sort of to appease the mayor at the time. And I'll tell you, the hardest thing in the world that we had back in the day, we had 8 city councilors, excuse me. For us to come up with a standard for a code of ethics, everybody has a different ethic in their mind. So we could come back with some wording that was, that would build a consensus. Yeah, everybody had a different code in their mind.
Can we just refer to municipal code on this stuff?
On this,
Conflict of interest?
so, what you could do on all of this is,
Municipal code.
Well,
Here's your own.
so not municipal, okay, let me contextualize it. The municipal code does not in and of itself have an ethics code, but starting probably after this language, the legislature amended the Governmental Conduct Act to apply to local governments.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, Governmental Conduct Act. So cities and school districts and counties all got pulled into Governmental Conduct Act. And that probably postdates this language here. So you have a couple of options. One is you could get rid of this, except for the public perception issue, but you could get rid of this with just a reference to the Governmental Conduct Act. Okay?
I really think that saves us.
Well, but let's see what else he's got.
It does. However, when I am touring and I'm coaching folks, I remind them that they have an option to customize. So Governmental Conduct Act is bigger and broader. And I always say you have an opportunity to pass your own local ethics code, which will give you some authority over ethics violations. So you want a code and you want someone to review an ethics violation. Governmental Conduct Act. I'm going to go back to Governmental Conduct Act. The only way to enforce a Governmental Conduct Act violation is through the State Ethics Commission. Time consuming, expensive emotionally and monetarily. So you file it over there and it gets handled, and that's okay. You file it, someone's going to look at it, it gets handled. But you also have the option for a local code that may be customized. Here's a problem we have in Vegas, that they're not having an indemnity. Based on the size or the industry or whatever that we have in our community. So we can localize it, and then we can have our own board, which I don't know that this does. But you have the opportunity to have your own board that reviews it, like an ethics board, which Santa Fe has an ethics board. And I know what yours do.
We don't.
Yeah.
We've not had, like America, to point one at a time, like. we
Well,
need to.
Yeah, they'd have to do it by ordinance,
Yeah,
right?
Ordinance.
So what you could do, honestly, is you could say, follow the Governmental Conduct Act. Pass an the city shall have an ethics ordinance, which contains an ethics review board. And you could cut it down to that. I am a little bit nervous about all of this being in a charter versus an ordinance, because it's not adaptable.
Yeah.
You can only edit it every 4 years, right? So, I mean, that's a big leap, but you could do that. You could do that. The only negative I'd see in the community is, Charter Commission doesn't want any ethics anymore because they're getting it out.
We're referring them.
But I think if we say they shall have an ethics ordinance,
And they shall come back.
it
Put together.
shall have a local review board along with the
But that's the
government.
goal.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what you do.
Everybody will find a way to challenge that.
Article.
He's not a big class on throwing what is it, aluminum can out the window.
GCA 2.
The only one I see that's different, the only one I see that's different, Gino, is political activity. That last one, 19.03.
So what you're gonna speak on something after.
I think we stay more with state law and then make sure that if they do have to do it, that they appoint the local committee. Ethics commission.
Mhm.
That's what Santa Fe has, right? You said,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like the reference to state law. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
suggestion of the requirement of development of ethics, right?
Mhm.
Local
Yeah, a
development,
local ordinance, yeah.
local ordinance, as well as the requirement to have that ethics commission. Because I think it actually strengthens what the intent is with a lot less wording that's subject to interpretation and maybe gets a little muddled.
Well, this is all wording that was done prior to there being one, the state law.
Okay.
That's why, I know why Gino's worried, because so the state law is probably a lot more encompassing.
It is, it's just broad. It
But
covers
if we define,
every municipality.
break it down, like you said,
Yeah.
So do we
I
have?
wrote it down based on your feedback. It's article, it should shorten, and it's gonna say, all elected, appointed, and employees and board and commission members, because it applies to you too, shall comply with the New Mexico Governmental Conduct Act. Boom. Number 2, the city shall, I would say shall, adopt an ethics ordinance for additional ethics, blah, 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 beyond governmental conduct act. And shall have a local board. Make the local
And I
ethics.
think part of the reasoning is when you put the ethics into the ordinance, it allows for adjustment.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you have it in the charter,
You gotta wait till it's reviewed
Yeah.
4 years.
or more.
Or potentially more.
Yep.
So you really don't allow that document to evolve. This takes that into consideration.
Especially
Yeah.
there's always ethics, things happening all the time.
New cases, new all kinds. So picking political activity, I won't do this for the whole thing, but picking political activity, because I teach a lot on this one. Okay, no person shall engage in fundraising or campaigning in city offices regarding any ballot measure at a city election. Well, if you notice, that's pretty narrow. It's any ballot measure for a city election. Governmental Conduct Act is much broader. You can't engage in political fundraising or campaigning for any election in city offices. No person shall be disciplined or dismissed from city employment for failure or refusal to pay or promise to pay an assessment, subscription, contribution, blah, blah, blah. Most of that in different language is in the Governmental Conduct Act. Interestingly, this contradicts, provided that nothing herein shall prohibit or limit voluntary contributions to municipal elections. Actually, that's allowed in the Governmental Conduct Act. Where I teach that you get in trouble is when someone says, hey, come to my candidate barbecue on Saturday. Well, GCA doesn't really let you do that. You can't solicit employees. And you might just be saying, hey, bring your family, it's free food on Saturday. But that employee is hearing it as I better show up or else I might get fired. Right? I might lose my job. So going on to the next one, candidate, this might be localized. Any city employee who becomes a candidate for municipal office shall, upon filing a declaration, take a leave of absence without pay, use accrued time, or both, not later than 30 days prior. Yeah, that's not anything that's in the government. No employee shall engage in campaigning, fundraising, or other political activity involving any municipal election while on duty. Notice how it's only municipal election. Again, Governmental Conduct Act says no political activity.
Right.
Can we just big trucks to put up some?
Pick them up. The city trucks are used to pick them up.
Yeah, I've had, someone can make this stuff up, have them build, the 2x4 framework in the back of a truck that's got the sign on it, city truck. 2x4, vote for the mayor, driving up and down Main Street.
Is that north of I-40 or south of I-40? That's all we're gonna
No
ask.
comment. No comment. I've had elected officials use their local government email. Come to my fundraiser.
You may be back at, US City dot whatever. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So those types of things happen. So no employee, let's see, that takes us to E. Governing body shall adopt an ordinance providing for implementation and enforcement of this section.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we allow Gino to put something together?
Yeah.
And that will be the second to the last item to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The
All right.
last item, I don't see any edits there.
Okay.
In 10.
It's more procedural.
We have,
It's
well, you're gonna be changing the
procedural,
date,
but
right?
it's all the way
Yeah,
back.
date for each.
Oh, the effective date, charter shall take effect.
It'll be 26, right? January 1st, 26?
26, yeah. So those are somewhat small edits.
So I wonder if we can consolidate the schools here too while we're at it, since we did the kind of 1970.
Let's try it.
You not only want to lose your role, but get rid of the
It's
job.
all right, we're not elected officials right now. Yeah, we'll put that in the city charter, then we'll take it to court.
You can't, you don't consolidate, you don't need.
I know. You know, they should have done this back then. They consolidated the town in 68 or 1970. They should have done it back then. And I know why they don't do it anymore. It's all, now it's more nostalgic and thing. But there's two administrations, full administration.
You could still have two high schools.
You can have them to 14 like Albuquerque.
High schools because
We
they
don't
all
have,
fit in one.
hey, you went to a prom the other day and there was only 20, 30 students.
Oh, that's sad.
60 with the partners, right? They're little now, right?
Was it,
Well,
in
that's
the-
what
You figure
was it in the gym?
it.
No, it won't fit in the, it's too little to have to do it in the
I know.
conference room.
Really
The,
sad.
If you were to combine the high schools today, it would be smaller than the high school to the elementary one, the local high school, elementary Robinson. You combine them today, it'd be smaller than,
Yeah, one of the schools back then.
yes,
I came from a class that's almost 200,
that was the norm.
and that was the same thing.
Now you're gonna look at, classes that are not beyond the range of like 60 to 80, maybe.
Oh, it was in the
Can you
gym.
imagine how this You know what scared me to death is when Robertson, I think, or West was playing Dexter. Football.
Dexter.
Really? That's the same size as, you know, from the MacArthur? You know, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Could you check on this one too for us? You're just gonna check the dates on this.
Yeah.
So the only thing we really have for the next meeting is,
Eight,
Article
9, and 10.
Yeah. So you don't have much then.
No.
So I think the only other thing that we should discuss now, if you don't mind, see what my agenda is. 'Cause there's almost some kind of rule here, is we talked about having two questions on the ballot, okay? One of them having to do with all the changes
Right.
and the other one with the salary. So I think we still need to go that route.
And do we want to 4 to 8 on the,
All right, yeah.
we want a
yes.
third?
No, I think we put all that in the bulk of the,
The 4
but
to
the
8?
only thing that's by itself is the salary. That's what we talked about.
Definitely
Let's
on that.
talk
side.
about that. So I would consider respectfully, Mr. Chair, thinking about 4 to 8 on one question, salary on another. And there are so many changes that need to be made.
So we don't have to die on either of those.
Yeah, you don't want them to die on 4 to 8.
The only thing is that the council
Yeah.
pretty much agreed on the 8th.
Yeah.
Look at the people.
But see, they have their chance, right? They'll have their chance.
Yeah, but if it passes council with a go to vote and all these edits die.
Right, if, yeah, all the edits would die if
Yeah.
people wanted to say it for.
Yeah.
If they say, I don't
That's
want
what
to,
he's saying.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, and I'm just going off of the lead of the council.
Yeah, so I think the two most, controversial changes, if you will be the salary
And
and
then
the council size.
Yeah,
And so I would like a recommendation. I think it's a danger that if based on one of those two issues, the entire document.
all the conduct goes
Uh,
down.
yes.
3
that-
votes.
That it's decided against, then we're back to square one.
Well, let's go one by one. I think the salary needs to be separate.
yes.
Okay.
Anybody have an issue with that?
I agree, it's salary by itself.
And we need to revisit that in the next one because we
We had a couple of options.
because we had several options. We
Yeah,
need to
we're down
decide
to two. I
on-
think.
Yeah.
The mayor making more than the council,
Mhm.
and then one was higher than the other one. That was the only thing that I saw.
We're all gonna agree, that's, it's question on some.
Yeah.
Salary
Yes,
question.
salary to question, I totally agree.
Because we don't want the whole thing to die because of salary.
Right.
And then
Now,
Go ahead. Go
now
ahead.
what about the question of 4 to 8? Is that a separate question?
I say yes.
Still the same.
So will the document be friendly both directions? It'll be presented. Either way, it doesn't matter. If that one passes, we'll be okay. If it fails, we'll still be okay.
Right, if you keep 4 to 8 separate and it passes, you're fine. If it fails, you're fine, as long as the third question, or whatever order we put them in. I would put first question is administrative changes.
The work that we did.
Yeah, second, yeah, the work we did.
Second would be the
Second
4 to
would
8.
be 4 to 8, third would be salary. So first one should pass because it's just good governance, right? I don't think there's anything that's gonna upset anyone. We're just updating it for the law. Then you've got 4 to 8. So if that passes on its own, it's good. We're good. Then 4 to 8, it passes or not. Remember, we made changes in the language.
The majority of the council members, whatever that number is.
Right, we started eliminating references to calculations based on 4 people to just say the entire membership or things like that. We made it more broad. So 4 to 8 passes or doesn't, we're still finding more. Salary passes or doesn't.
Yeah.
We're still finding more.
Important clarification, this is, you need to pass it from the election,
Yes,
not the
Election.
the governing body.
not the governing
Right, I
body.
think that's where,
So the governing body has to approve it to get on the election.
Yes,
yes, that's what we're saying 3.
We're
They
gonna-
don't kill it off.
yeah, we're gonna recommend 3 questions. I would propose that you recommend.
To the governing body as well.
You guys.
Yeah.
To the governing body as
But the
well.
salary question would have 3 points. Do we want it this way, or no change?
We're gonna, yeah, we pick one.
We would have to select one.
Yeah.
We'd have to come up. with-
It's either they like it or they don't.
Okay.
No, we're gonna select one. Yeah, but each one's on the ballot, and then it gets smaller.
Well, the thing is that then becomes more than one
And based on
question.
the meeting with the
Right.
council,
Yeah.
right? I think
Raise or no
all
raise?
3 of these are gonna get past the council.
I think so.
Well, I don't think that's an issue. The issue is 2 and 3 probably aren't gonna get past the city. Like the voters.
Or have more risk. They
Or
have
have
more
more
risk.
risk.
It's gonna be close.
You might get them, but.
Yeah.
I think the 4 to 8
I
has a
think
better
the 4 to
chance.
8 has a chance. The
Yes.
salary is
Yeah.
gonna be, a little.
So we're gonna have to- Then we get to go-
We don't get too crazy.
Then we go to education.
Yeah.
That's how we educate.
I think it's important that we do that.
I'm big into educating the community.
When we
These are the
have,
reasons we want to,
when people run unopposed, and then there's 2 positions open in the board, there might not be anybody running for one of them.
That would happen in Las Vegas.
No.
The model worked pretty good. Everybody has a cell phone now.
Well, the other piece to that is the flip side is the salary. I think that's part of what we're.
Yeah.
But if
We're-
it's voted
Well,
down,
but I think as we're
Yeah.
educating the community or talking to the
We're
public,
educating.
that's part of the argument is that if we want to increase the political process, this is a
It's kind of like,
way to
it's kind of like,
the political.
I ran for city council, I got elected, okay. I kind of made a statement, I think, promised myself, I'll do my best to never raise taxes on the city, right? Okay, little did I know, in order to get more money from the city, from the state, you need to raise taxes, right? So here goes Joseph Cruz again saying, okay, I remember I said I'll do my best not to. Okay, well, now I have to, but I'm gonna educate you why I have to raise taxes.
just get rid of it.
Because, yes, I did, yes.
Okay. that's
But
good.
now I have to, because in order for us to take care of our city, get more money from the states, we have to raise taxes, part of our, right? It's about educating the city. So once you educate the city, they understood, they had no issues, okay, we're gonna get a new park, or we're gonna give you this, or whatever, you dumpster, something, you know what I mean? Education's the key.
So we got 2 and 3.
We're gonna have 3. We're gonna recommend 3. So you work on those 2,
Yeah,
and then at the next meeting, we'll go through the last changes and we'll pick the numbers.
We gotta think about how to do this.
Get the council, then we have to
Start
go
talking
through.
about it all the time.
Well, we're gonna have public hearings, I'm sure, here and probably, hopefully at each ward. Like we did in the past,
That'd be good.
and then for sure here at City Hall, and up to and including the time that the council approves this, okay?
Yeah.
They'll have a public hearing at that point too. But I think we get over the air, and I think we get newspaper to let them know. And there may be people that want more information, and I guess we could put a phone number out there if people want to talk to one of us. I think it's important because the work that went into this was, I think, very delicately handled. And I know that Gino's worked on a number of these things. And it doesn't always have to be a charter. Some of them are just ordinances that you worked on that have the same effect. So,
Yeah, you know, once the city governing body approves it, then we need to start education.
Then we have to start education.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're hoping for.
Yeah, that's gonna be the key. That's really gonna be.
I think,
Op-eds, letters to the editor.
Yeah.
Forums.
Public forums.
Round table, publishing.
Roundtables, exactly.
and Jim, would you make some of those meetings?
That's more of a question for my contract.
Okay.
But the short answer, can I? Yes. Whether they budgeted that in my contract, that's another thing, but I can talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at least for maybe a public hearing we have here at City Hall, you know, so, and then maybe they do it on two sides, two locations of town. We did it back in the first round. We did it at 4 different wards.
Yeah, one in each ward.
Yeah.
That's what I'm used to.
So, okay. Is there anything else?
No.
You got your directions?
His direction.
You get
Got my
it?
direction. I took my notes. I just want everyone to know the time.
Well, we're not done yet. Let's make this official. Any other business to come before the commission?
The chair is no business, I so moved.
Oh, there is a motion and a second. And I think once you made a motion to adjourn, there's going to stop that. Right, you know? No,
That's right. You gotta vote on it.
So all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
That was
very
intentional.
much.
That's right. It's a non-debatable motion.
Exactly. That's a seat down in there.
And then,
Nice work, everybody. This
No,
is a culminate. You saw your work in action.
Yeah, no, this is good, even if our the room is small. So how do we get a hold of IT?
I'll get a hold of them.
Okay.
Real.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go to. You had this before.
No,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You too, Joe.
Push some more.
No, thank you.
Gotta get both.